Aloha and welcome to Rewilding Your Mind. My name is Keegan Anatole and I'm enjoying the beautiful summer here on Maui and the islands of Hawaii, the most secluded place on the earth, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Secluded meaning from civilization, human civilization. We might have some civilizations going on in the water, who knows? But that would probably be civilization with a different definition. And, I'm open to that. I'm open to having different definitions for words and being creative. And so I just want to talk about rewilding here on this video. Hopefully be the start of a nice series, just sharing kind of where I'm coming from, some of my experiences, and hopefully lead us into a wonderful trajectory where we can kind of share in communication and grow together. I became pretty dissatisfied with the way things are on, in this civilization. We could talk about the human civilization. I grew up in California, and I noticed, during high school, like, how come all the, towns are, and everything is designed for cars, and what about people walking around? Like, why can't it be, more people friendly and not like seem like everything is that you have to be in a car, and everyone presumes that's how you're going to get around, to this day. Everyone's like, oh, they just assume I have a car. I travel to a new place, which I do a lot, and then I get a new job, which I also do a lot. Then they're like, they just assume I'm going to show up in a car. Like, no, I don't have a car. And I prefer to be a little slower. I have a turtle tattooed on my belly. I'm kind of a turtle medicine here out on the Hawaiian Islands with the turtles. But even when I was just in Minnesota several weeks ago, I was seeing all these little turtles, and I resonate with that totem medicine, the spirit of the animal that is like a dinosaur living for a long time. The sea turtles, especially, that have been around on this earth, and a lot of indigenous people call the earth the mother turtle, or the Americas, Turtle Island, and slow and steady wins the race, and it's not a race really. It's actually, it's just actually a creative experience. Like, the purpose of life is not to win and triumph. The purpose is to see what is possible for us to create. That's like, the universe is one being, one divine creative spirit that is expressing itself just for self-expression's sake. And when we do that within our individual lives, then we are aligning, and when our intentions align with who we really are, which is everything, we can get more into understanding how the fractal nature of the universe is, the microcosm is reflected in the macrocosm, meaning each of us is our own universe, and we're the entire cosmos. All the information is contained within every cell of our bodies. So we are that divine, Mother Earth turtle, swimming her way through the cosmos, and then so on and so forth at every scale of this beautiful fractal hologram of a dream that we're dreaming awake. And a lot of people, well, they're not really awake. They seem like they're awake, but it's like the Matrix, if you haven't seen it. I definitely recommend watching that movie, the original Matrix movie, because our human civilization has kind of been turned into this source of energy that, like he shows in the movies, like we've been turned into a battery for the machines. and it's a futuristic, um, nightmare reality, but actually it's a lot like the one that we're living in already. Um, it's quite parallel. We have this machine that's called the industrial complex, a military industrial complex, and it's like we're growing our cities and we're in competition and we're bombing each other and shooting each other, and it's all to fuel this parasite, like some cosmic parasite that's feeding on humanity and feeding on the Mother Earth. And really, those are the same, one and the same. Humanity is one with the Earth, and when we align and we come back into that living life for self-expression's sake, to be creative and to explore and enjoy and not have all these crazy concepts that we have to, hoard or be greedy. The universe is abundant, and so my life has been an experiment and an experience in that reality. And I'm someone who is brave and determined enough, and supported and blessed enough to go and just trust and to live in the moment and kind of to relax into alignment with this universal expression of this intention, the fundamental purpose of life, which is just to create, to see what's possible, and embracing that and living in a flow and not static, which is stillness or stasis or the state. And what we have in this, like I was saying, the military industrial complex, that's this mechanistic other intention, which is driving our state, the state that we were born into, the political state is what I'm talking about. That word state can be used in various ways, and it's really a kind of a negative and distorted reflection, kind of like if you go into a fun house and you go to a fun house mirror, like this, what you see in this crazy distorted mirror is sort of like what we're experiencing in our human civilization. It's a warped and delusioned version of a reflection of true reality, which is, that's when, if we look at, instead of looking into this mirror, if we just look within, imagine just a pure mirror within you and see what that looks like, then that's actually the true, a much more pure kind of reflection. And our mind it's programmed. It's like a computer. We're the most, our brain is the most advanced biological computer, and so we have all these programs from living in a funhouse of mirrors and thinking that this distorted world that we see inside that funhouse mirror maze is the true world. And so it's naturally confusing when people, they don't realize that actually just look inside the mirror of inside you, or find a way to expand and transcend that funhouse mirror container that we've all been placed into by intention. Because I'm sure you guys can understand what it's like for farmers that are growing crops. They have certain seeds, certain genetics, and the goal, is to create abundance. So what I'm going to talk about is the difference between, my journey. A lot for the last 10 years since I found out about permaculture is that's a permanent culture, in case you've never heard of it. It's a beautiful thing. It's basically a modern return to indigenous ways of humanity being a steward of nature and working to create more balance in the ecosystem and more abundance, and to meet our needs as part of a community of the many beings of nature that all work in synergy. And yes, there's competition, but it's not one for one. It's all for one and one for all. And there's a healthy balance that is what is created naturally in this intelligent world that we live in. And really, though, who's in charge is Mother Earth, and we are all part of her. We're like her neural endings. We're like her way to perceive and to continue to evolve in a transcendent way. But we're going through this process of the funhouse, and we've been going through it for a long time. So rewilding is about getting out of that funhouse and reconnecting with our natural tendencies. My journey has been, since I discovered permaculture, to go and travel around the world and volunteer on different permaculture projects and organic farms. And so I started to draw, by bringing up agriculture, I started to draw a comparison to kind of illustrate what is this intention that's causing us to be like, from where does this intention come, of who and why and how were we placed into this like funhouse mirror reality, and had our minds systematically programmed to think that that was actual reality. So it's the whole earth and beyond is like, think of it like a farm. And there's all these different species, and we as humans, we have our farms and our ranches where we're cultivating certain crops, and we want to have a certain outcome. We're looking for a delicious fruit. We're looking for, people eat meat. I don't do that because there's a golden rule that we all know, and that's not just some nice idea. That's actually how reality works. It's not that we should do unto others what we want to be done unto us, and it's just a nice idea. Actually, it's the law of karma, which means action, that whatever we do unto others is done unto us, and that's what we're experiencing. And a lot of people, they just can't grasp this because they have this concept that we're somehow above or immune to that or justified, or they just assume that just because something is done by a lot of people, it's okay. And I don't go along with that, and I haven't for a long time now. So I'm excited to be able to share during this little video kind of my journey and how that has impacted and led me to a life of beautiful adventure. And it's all just like extemporaneous, so that's why sometimes I'm speaking haltingly, and I'll practice and I'll get better, and hopefully that inspires you, and I'll keep getting inspired. So I don't think I really finished kind of unpacking that metaphor and that actual reality of a farm that we live on. It's like we think that we can just choose the cows and breed them the way we want and then extract, and that's like, they tie things around the bulls testicles when not before they become bulls. They are, little calves, and the ranchers, they just tie something around that. If they don't want to have a bull, they just like, oh, that's fine, I'll just tie something around its developing private parts, and they'll just wither and fall off. And they're just like, oh yeah, that's just how we do things. But what if that was done to us? And the reality is that is done to us, and we can get right into that. Basically, here in the United States, well, I say here, but I'm in Hawaii, so there's all these deep subjects. Like, Hawaii is actually not part of the United States because it's an occupied territory, and the annexation as a state was something that was illegal. So by international law and recognized by the United Nations, Hawaii continues to be its own nation. And the concept of it being a state is just a part of that fund house delusion that people are so convinced is just real, because it's said over and over and programmed into our minds, and we see these fun house images and we don't know how to see beyond that. We don't know how to step out of that mirror world. But so I'll just say, in the United States, it's normalized for males to become circumcised, and that's what happens when you're born in a hospital. They'll recommend it, as they'll say it's for hygiene, but that's not the reason that that's done. And I can, look, I forget the name of him now, but there was a professor at a university, a newly hired professor, that he'd been delving into this subject of circumcision and how it's taking away from his sexual pleasure, for one thing, and then there's no justification for it. And he did research and to find out, like, it's hygiene depends on your cleanliness practices. It's not because, it's not a good enough reason to go and take off the foreskin of a newborn and cause it all this pain. And it's the same thing that we do to those poor little calves before they are allowed to become bulls. And then, it was accepted by the Catholic Church to castrate young boys so that they could continue to sing high in the choir. And people just accepted that. Like, my dad told me about that. He's like, yeah, they had this, and then they're just like, oh yeah, that's just something that the church would do so that they could have these young boys singing in high voices. And it's just like, how can you live with that? How can you accept that people are doing that? And yeah, so I am on a journey of just committing within my life to do the best that I can and to make a moral decision, and there is morality that, in this universe. Like, why would you think that is justified to go and influence another being like that and cause it so much pain and constrict and what's the word? Yeah, I can't think of the word, but basically retard its growth or disable. That's the word I'm thinking of. Disable its natural evolution just for your own, like, petty desires. Yeah. So I basically, I don't drive anymore. I'm kind of, people just think it's okay. Everyone drives their cars around. And and I don't mean to come on too strong, but I'm just kind of explaining, like, my perspective of things. I don't see the transportation system that we have as something that's good or sustainable. And we get a lot of advantage from it, being able to zoom around, and people love their cars and all this. But like, is it in balance? Is there a respect that's owed to the other inhabitants of this earth, all the land animals and the birds? And could go on and on about the effects of what we have in place. And so I don't think that people are going to give it up like I am, and that's understandable. But I think, and we're starting to see it right now, that's going to become a forced evolution out of that, and it's going to be a forced rewilding. And if you can get some of my perspectives here, like, I consider myself, ahead of that, because I know, and I'm ahead of the natural tendency. I'm a forerunner here, not like the car. I'm just on the edge of this movement of coming back into harmony with nature and committing to live a lifestyle that is more in alignment with what is sustainable and what's possible for the future generations. And that's how a lot of indigenous people had to make their decisions in their societies, is thinking about what would be good for their children and their children's children, and on and on. They call it the 7 generations, but really it's more. It's all the future generations. Are we going to just continue our driving and our destruction of other species and our perpetuating a imbalance? No, we're not, because we're not going to be able to, because this future fuel price is going up and up, and the resources aren't, we're not going to be able to sustain it, and it's falling, and that's a good thing. So follow me, and I'll kind of show you some more of these perspectives that will help you to be okay with where you are. Like I said, the purpose of life is just to experience what's possible. And when what we're creating it's just ludicrous, also there's a call to bring balance so that we can have sanity. But maybe I'm just babbling and rambling, and so I'll stop this first little episode here, and thank you for tuning in. Blessings and love, and hopefully we'll see you next time.